you have the mic. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Very exciting, and let's do it.
Thank you so much, Raduca. All right, so the same as some of you have been in my class before, and some of you haven't. And the ones who have, we're going to try something new this time because I wanted to start the way I would normally start with the class. I didn't get to do that last time because I took over for Mr. Eric. But this time I'd like to sort of start the way I would normally start a class because I want to know more about you guys. You know, if I'm going to be working with you, I like to know a little bit more about you and make that connection. And that's really what this class is going to be about, because writing is really about connection and disconnection, as we spoke about before. This idea that all of life is kind of built around connection and disconnection, and the way that we are able to meet somebody or not meet somebody, or, you know, get on with somebody or not get on with somebody. And so I'm going to pull up my share screen thing. Oh, can you enable that for me, Raduca?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thanks, no worries.
I'm doing multiple things, sorry. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna have to admit somebody. Yeah, you should be able to do it now.
Okay, let's see, here we go. So there it is. Boop. Share that. All right, so let's see if I make that go to I don't know how to make it go. Well, at any rate, so this is what we're going to be talking about. I wanted to put it into, oh, there we go, slideshow. There we go. So now you should be able to see that. So this class is going to be working around the idea of profound connection, meaning we can focus on one of two things when it comes to writing a story. You can kind of focus on the idea that you're going to go from, you know, disconnection, which is kind of sad, and especially given the COVID situation, when we're anyway experiencing disconnection, I thought it would be more fun to focus on writing stories about connection, just because we've got more than enough disconnection happening around us all the time. So that's why I decided to do this. So the schedule that I have listed for us right now is, we're going to talk a little bit about who we are. We're going to talk about the ideas of with what we're connected. So meaning things that we get joy from, things that, or people that we get joy from, connections that we have that are good for us. And then what frames that connection? Meaning, what makes it work for us or not work for us? You know, like some things that kind of made us like that thing, some things that made us not like that thing. So I'll talk more about that as we get into it, but that's just the general outline for this first class. And because this is a class that I'm starting at the beginning, I'm going to give over my diversity statement. And my diversity statement is just this. If I had to define it in a single word, it would be this: respect for one another. So in our structured and unstructured discussions and dialogues, we also have many opportunities to explore some challenging issues and increase our understandings of different perspectives. Our conversations may not always be easy. You know, I can't read this. I have to actually go out of that because half of it's missing. Our conversations may not always be easy. We sometimes will make mistakes in our speaking and our listening. Sometimes we'll need patience or courage or imagination or any number of qualities in combination to engage in the texts, our classmates, and our own ideas and experiences. So this just means that when somebody's talking and you don't necessarily agree with them, wait, be patient, listen, right? So always we will need respect for other people. And thus, an additional aim of this course necessarily will be for us to increase our facility with the sometimes difficult conversations that arise as we deepen our understandings of multiple perspectives, whatever our backgrounds, experiences, or positions. So again, this simply means to have respect for one another. If you don't agree with somebody, and this has happened, right? If you don't agree with somebody, you be patient and listen and hear what they have to say. All right. So did anybody have any questions about that diversity statement? Ah. No questions. All right, so I'm going to go back to this slide right here. So who are we? Would each one of you just go and introduce yourselves to the class and say who you are, what your name is, where you're from, and with what you feel connected, things that you feel passionate about, excited about, and what frames that connection? How did you get into it? What made you excited about it to begin with?
Hey.
Go, Brenda.
Hey. First, this is Basil. I'm Brenda. This is Basil. We're both from Seattle.
Hi, Brenda.
Hey. Yeah, he's a little jerk. I like books, kind of. I don't know, it's actually been a while since I've read one, but I like stories. I know I like stories. I like stories and, you know, if it's in books or video games or movies.
Mhm.
I also play drums. I like imagination stuff, and I guess, I don't know, what connects me to my family is, I don't know, I guess we all like watching movies together and stuff.
Yeah. And do you have some close friends, Brenda?
I don't know, I don't really talk to anyone much because of the COVID-19.
Right. But in general, do you have close friends at school, let's say when you're at school?
Mm.
I can share that. School is tough. Actually, if I can just do a small pitch here, kids are doing a lot better at home than at school. It seems like they are experiencing less anxiety. This is the latest. So these are the pluses of stay at home. But I would draw.
Yeah, they say that like kids get up in the morning and instead of saying, "Mom, I've got a tummy ache," instead there's no tummy aches, right? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brenda, who would you say you feel closest to in the whole wide world?
My dog.
Do you know? Your
Him.
dog. Okay, so Basil, right? Basil the dog. All right, Rafael, how about you? Thank you so much, Brenda, for sharing that with us. How about you, Rafael?
I'm Rafael. I'm 22 years old. I'm a German living in France, and what I'm passionate about is cars. I'm now a car technician and a level 3 car technician, and I love photography and videography. That's what I also do when I have free time. I think that it's something I can be creative in. The things I feel, the person I feel the most connected with, I don't really know, maybe with my family or something. I have no idea on that one. And that's
All right, that's fair. And
yeah.
when I say something like what frames that connection, so you're excited about cars, let's say.
Yeah.
How did you end up excited about cars?
I was always a bit of a petrol head. I always enjoyed big displacement engine, and maybe in my class it was a pretty unpopular opinion, but I didn't really care about gas mileage that much.
Okay, that's fair. Let's see who else is here. Let's see. Karen, is it? I can't see who this is. There's not a name. You have headphones on?
Marlene. So Marlene, Sarah, Justin, Penelope, whoever you want to just unmute and you can participate.
I'm Arlene, and I will be assisting with the courses here, posting, but for some reason the link wasn't working for me. Like I said, I'm Arlene, and I'm 23 years old. What makes me feel connected? I would say my dog for sure. Well, I have two dogs, so both of my dogs. My plants. I love plants. So I'm constantly just like looking after them and like propagating them to see if maybe new roots can come out. I enjoyed going hiking. Oh yeah, and I'm from Los Angeles, California. And let's see what else. And who do I feel connected to? Well, it would be like my friends and my family. And yeah, I think those are our closest connections. But with like COVID right now, it's just really hard to be connected with friends just because, we have to social distance, and then it's just, we have to be careful. But at the end of the day, I know that we're solid people.
Yeah. Okay. So that's great. Thank you so much. And like, I guess we'll get to it shortly. My idea about talking about the ways that we feel connected to people is because it's in such juxtaposition right now with how isolated we are, right? We can't be near the people that we really love and care about for the most part. Let's see, we've got two other people. Penny, would you go next?
Sure. Hi. This is what makes me feel connected. I'm so glad you tuned in. What makes me feel connected? My place here in Western Australia, which is very safe right now, thank goodness. And I feel for everybody who's struggling in the rest of the world. I love my garden, I love my doggies, I love my creative pursuits, of which I'm about to embark on a new one. What else? It's very early here, so my brain isn't quite switched on yet. It's starting. Yeah, I've had two.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right.
So
okay. And then, yeah, that's great. Thanks, Penny. Full disclosure here, I love Penny.
I love Goldie.
All right. And I think there's somebody down the bottom in a red shirt.
Yeah, there is Sarah and Justin. You guys are welcome to unmute and share, or say I don't want to. It's okay too.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, Sarah.
Okay. So I'm Sarah, and I am a doctoral student in Toronto in Canada. And something that I have felt especially connected to recently is sewing my own clothes, which I've picked up during COVID. And I do it with a friend of mine. And so we've been friends for years, but we've never sewn together. And it's really nice to be able to share this with each other. And we have very different personalities. I'm a lot more anxious, and I have some perfectionist tendencies, where she's a lot more easygoing. And it's really great to work with her on sewing projects because it makes it more pleasant. And I think that's good, right? That's
yeah, no, that's perfect. Thanks, Sarah.
What are you?
That's great.
What are you a doctoral student in?
Pardon?
What do you study?
Doctoral student in.
What do I study?
Yes.
Oh, so I am, it's in the field of health policy, and I'm looking at the use of medicinal psychedelics for people at end of life, and what are the barriers and facilitators to their medical use.
That sounds great. Really
That's
good.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm a therapist. Totally welcome that.
Okay.
And I think one more person, is there Justin? I don't have a photo for Justin, or even like a screen, but is Justin here?
Yeah, Justin is here.
Has headphones on.
We can see him.
Oh, I can see you, Justin. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Do you want to introduce yourself a little?
Not really.
Okay.
That's fair. All right. Well, if you don't want to, that's cool. Keep it to yourself.
Can
Keep it
I?
under your hat. We have another student. I'm going to do a brief introduction. Justin, there he is. Okay. So we did that.
Can I?
I'm going to go.
Dolly.
Oh, Raduca, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, just so I don't become just an image here. So I'm the founder of After School Village. So welcome everybody. And what makes me connected is actually because I want people to sort of reach out towards everybody else around them. Certainly, it starts with yourself, and that's sort of the seed of After School Village is you start with yourself or with the intention of connecting. And I'm going to stop here. I don't know how I ended up with that, but I'm a therapist by profession, and I realized that actually a lot of issues that people come into the therapy room, anxiety being one of them, can be prevented. And anxiety is just another state of being, and you welcome it and work with it. And I'm glad everybody's here and joining us. And Goldie, take it from here. Thank you.
So actually we're really grateful to After School Village, because this is literally, they're doing the thing that I'm talking about, this idea that of being able to reach out and make connections between people who maybe wouldn't make connections, so that we're not so isolated, right? Because sitting at home during COVID, that's pretty isolating. But this is like a nice experience where we get to see people and learn something new together. So thank you so much, Ms. Raduca, for making that possible. And the whole organization is really cool. So I'm going to be talking about this. So stories are built, actually, I'm going to put this into the slideshow again. There we go. Can you guys see that whole thing, or do you see like all this stuff up the top as well?
I can see it.
Yeah. Is it better? Oopsie. Is it better if I do it in the small screen or the large screen?
I have it on this large screen now.
Yeah, this is good, Goldie.
Okay, good. I'm just going to go with that. So when we're talking about stories, stories are built on connection and disconnection. So some of you have already heard this from me, but this is like a very basic piece of story writing. And another name for connection and disconnection is conflict. So I'm imagining, 2 years out, 3 years out, 5 years out from this COVID thing, where we're all experiencing this very profound disconnection from the community, there's going to be a lot of stories written about people's experiences, because that's part of a story, right? You are cut off from what you love. You're cut off from the people that you care about, and you're cut off from your ability to sort of socialize and be around other people. But the thing is, in stories, you can look at that two different ways. And that's why I have this negative, this is called negative, negative imaging right here. We've got, I think you can see the arrow when I draw this, right?
Yes.
So you can see here, this kind of, here's an outline of a person, and here's another outline of a person, right? So we could think of this as, here's one image, but then if you look at it this way, there's a different image. There's like a vase or a candlestick or something like that. So in art and in writing and in life in general, there's two different ways of looking at something that's, the inverse, right? So connection and disconnection, when we're talking about it, there is no ability, this sounds crazy, but there is no ability to make a connection if you don't understand what disconnection is. And vice versa. Disconnection can't exist unless there's connection to begin with. Does everybody understand that, like that basic idea there? You following?
I did.
Yeah. So for example, if we think about a little child who's very connected to their parent, and the parent is carrying them around in their arms, and the little child's really happy, and they're like, yes, 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 right? That's connection. But the child doesn't even know that they're connected to the parent until along comes the strange babysitter, and the babysitter puts out her arms and says, come on, baby, I'm going to take you now. And the baby goes, no! I know I don't want that, right? Because the baby knows the difference. Even from the time you're very little, you know the difference between this is the connection that I want, this is the connection that I don't, this is disconnection, to be taken away from a parent. So in a story, you can focus either on connection or disconnection, but you have to have both in order for there to be a story. And for those of you who've taken the class with me before, it's that idea of sometimes you're connecting and sometimes you're not disconnecting. And that kind of weaves the whole way through the story like a wave, right? There's a waveform that moves through the story of connection, disconnection, connection, disconnection, connection, disconnection. So like, let's say Rafal or Brenda, are you able to describe how that works in, let's say, something like Cinderella?
That's that
He had-
process that you have that with the spikes. That's something, there's something great, and then something bad happens, and then something great and something bad.
Right. So we have a question hanging over the story, right? In Cinderella, will she end up with the prince? So sometimes it seems like, yes, she's going to be with the prince, meaning connection. She's going to get what she wants. And sometimes we think, no way, she's going to end up in a pumpkin somewhere in a field. And no, she's not, she's not going to have that connection. And so that kind of goes the whole way through the story. And it starts right at the beginning. It starts with her mother dies. That's the most profound disconnection right there. Her mother dies. Doesn't have a mother, so now she's got what? The evil stepmother. She's got an evil stepmother. Who wants an evil stepmother? Nobody wants an evil stepmother, right? So Cinderella certainly doesn't want the evil stepmother. And instead she yearns for like a life of connection. And the prince goes around, he hands out invitations, or whoever hands out the invitations, and says, come to this ball, wow. And she thinks, ding, wow, connection. I'm going to go to the ball. So for a second in the story, you're there. You're like, oh, yes, there's going to be connection. Yeah. And then the evil stepsisters and the evil stepmother say, no, you're staying home. You can't go to the ball. So then, it's lost again. Forget it. She's not going to have connection. She's going to be all alone sitting in the cinders. That's where her name comes from. But then what happens?
Fairy godmother appears in the garden where she's crying.
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, the fairy godmother appears, and the fairy godmother is like her dream come true. Yes, you can have a dress. Yes, you can have a coach. Yes, you can have footmen, and yes, you can go to the ball, right? Connection.
Yeah.
So this is how it kind of, there's this back and forth throughout the story, so that you never know what the end is going to be. You never know, is she going to have connection? Is she not going to have connection? It's kind of like our lives, right? Are we going to be connected? Are we not going to be connected? Are we going to have love in our lives? Are we not going to have love in our lives? Are we going to have a good income? Are we not going to have a good income? It's always kind of, ooh, we don't know. We hope, but we don't know, right? So that's sort of, wow. So that's where we're going with this idea. So next slide. Go to the next slide. No. Next one. There we go. So in this, I'm going to have you guys start a story. So we didn't do this last time because I didn't start with the class, but I'd really like you guys to start with this idea. So I'm hoping you have paper. Does everyone have paper? Put up your hands. Or a computer, I guess. Actually, everyone writes with computers. I do not write with a computer. I'm a novelist, and I write by hand on a piece of paper. That's how I write. And then I have to type it in laboriously with 2 fingers because I'm a really terrible typist. So, so you guys can use your computers or a pen and paper, whatever you want, but I'd like you to start working with this. And the reason that I'm going to have you start this way is because memory is very connected with your senses, right? You've heard about the idea that smell is very evocative. It brings up things for you. But it's also very evocative for the people who are reading your work. And so I can talk all the time about blah, 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 what's going on in my head, but that doesn't really connect. Again, this idea of connection, that doesn't really connect with my reader. My reader connects to my work when he or she can experience the sensual world through my words. So by sensual world, I mean smell, see, hear, feel, taste, right? So that's what I'm going to have you focus on right now. And I would like you to take 10 minutes. And if you have questions in the middle, you can just ask me, right? But I do want you to take 10 minutes right now to write down, whoopsie, here it is. Write down a memory from a moment of the most profound connection in your life. From a moment when you felt really connected to somebody. And I want you to think about what you smelled, what you saw, what you heard, what you felt, what you tasted. Maybe you won't have all of those senses, but you'll have a whole bunch of them. Right? And here's what I don't want you to do, because I'm going to be really like prescriptive here. Don't tell me what you were thinking. I don't want to know what you were thinking. Let the memory of that moment be conveyed entirely through your senses, even if it means that you're simply answering the questions posed above. Does everybody understand what I'm asking you to do? Do you have
Yeah.
questions? I see thumbs up. I see heads nodding. I'm hoping this is good. Go, you've got 10 minutes. I'm going to keep my eye on the clock too. Start writing. Go. Don't take your pen off the paper.
I'm
Right,
still
right,
looking for a pen.
Try not to stop writing. Just try to keep on going. Even if what you're writing you're not happy with, you can go back later and cross it out, but just keep on going. You've got another 5 minutes. Keep on going.
I have really no idea what I could write down.
Rafael, write about the time that you met your favorite pet, your best friend, an uncle, a grandfather, the time that you saw your mother after not seeing her for a long time. Think about a time when you bumped into somebody or something that you loved greatly. All right, so you have about a minute. So just see if you can finish up what you're writing right now. And you'll have more opportunity to write this later on, because I want you to. All right, so hopefully you guys got a start on that, which you can continue later on tonight or tomorrow or sometime during the week if, as you wish. But is there anybody who would like to share what they wrote? I know that some of you probably don't want to share what you wrote, but
I want to share.
go ahead, Brenda. Yay, good.
Okay, so when I was about like 13 at a summer camp, I was talking to the friends I made, and the whole we were in this cafeteria, and it smelled like hand sanitizer. And my friend admitted to us that as a kid, she had a crush on Ash Ketchum. That just made me feel really happy because I also used to have a crush on Ash Ketchum as a kid. And I was like, finally, someone else who went through it. I thought I was like the only one. And it just that was just a real nice connection moment. It kind of made me feel less lonely.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's good, Brenda. Thank you. Somebody else? Somebody want to say? Sarah?
If I can go. So it's not, I don't want to share the memory, but I do want to share the process of going through this exercise. And
that's fine. Really good.
It's a question, because when I was remembering it, I felt that I was changing the memory, and I can't say it's like 100% accurate or complete fact.
Right.
And
that's how memory is, unfortunately. Each time we revisit it, it becomes a memory of a memory instead of the memory itself.
Mm-hmm. And so I was I caught myself like when I was writing, oh, did this really happen? Is this okay? Like, should I include this, or am I framing it based on how I feel or my context now? And so I was having a lot of these questions going through my head while I was writing. And so I wanted also to hear how that factors into this exercise. And I don't know.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that we do, when we write, we do a lot of self-censoring, telling ourselves, you can't write that isn't allowable to say, you're adjusting things to suit yourself. There's all this self-censoring. And part of my reason for saying several times during your little writing exercise there, just keep on going. Mm-hmm. Just keep on going. Don't take your pen off. Because the more you write without interrupting yourself, the better the flow is straight from the subconscious, rather than the conscious mind, which is editing the whole time using the delete button on the computer. It's why I write by hand. There is no delete button on my notebook. Raduca, you had something to add.
Not to add, I actually want to share it, Sarah. I mean, because piggybacking on what she said is, I felt that certain memories allow me to totally surrender and actually puts me back into that place. So I don't know. And I do have something to share if Sarah is done, but I will give it back to Sarah to see what she.
Yeah, go for it. I'm done.
That was great. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Appreciate it, because it's actually really helpful for other people, for example, to know that when you start writing this kind of, because what I really want you guys to be able to do is to write down deeper work, not just like a story about the 3 little pigs or something. I want you to be able to write deeper work, which is coming from like a deeper place in yourselves. And these are kind of the exercises that will help you get there. And at the same time, when you do that work, it messes with you a little, because it's like, oh wait, do I really want to go there? And so this is part of the reason, by the way, why we're starting with the idea of let's start with connection rather than disconnection, because if you're starting with the disconnection, it's already like we're already in a crappy place. Sorry, let's not move further into that place. Let's move into the other side of story writing. So Raduca, did you want to go?
Yeah, so the memory is about, so I defected from Romania, so there was a lot of trauma associated with moving from Romania to United States many years ago. And during my healing process, I guess the memories that were the most healing were about my grandmother from my father's mother. So basically the memory is in grandma's, and it felt better to do bullets for me. So grandma's garden under the walnut tree, with a rough wool blanket under me, and there was the sun, heat, and light through the branches of the tree, the smell of grass, and the tomato plants, which are close. I had the visual iodine on my feet and hand from stepping on fallen walnuts, bothering flies, the sound of the gargling sound of the river stream next by, lazy body, legs, feeling very carefree, and a slowness of time. And then I had a visual of my grandmother, who was working on this farm of hers with a patched dress that she always was wearing. And so that's about it.
So that's exactly what I was looking for, Raduca. Like, you conveyed, first of all, these beautiful images that just take me right there. And second of all, the feelingness of that time, right? So you have these images that convey to me a feeling of that time. And the strange thing is, like, writers often try to write lots and lots and lots of sentences about what an experience is. But really, when you get down to it, it's these, what Raduca just did, these sensory images convey meaning to an average reader, to every reader, actually. And so I really do encourage you, like she said, Raduca said that she just did bullet points, like just these, you know, but essentially answering those questions. What did you smell? What did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel? What did you taste? That's really all you need to do in order to write a really effective sensory scene, right? And so did anybody want to add to that? I know there's a couple more people on here who haven't spoken yet. Did anybody want to
Uh, what should I say? Hey, I think I did it. It was a memory of walking in Mum's rose garden and smelling the flowers in the summer and eating a Vegemite sandwich on thick Italian bread, and the taste being salty and the bread crunchy.
That's it.
And then the next moment I heard a rustle in the long grass because it was summer, and I just froze in fear. And I was very much relieved when I looked down to see a blue-tongued lizard hissing at me and not a dugite.
Yeah, really. Snake for the non-Australians, a scary snake. Yeah, so exactly. So Penny also did exactly the same idea, where you get immersed into this scene through the senses, because that's how our memories are made. Our memories are not made with words, they're made with senses. And so if you're trying to convey a feeling or a memory, and you're trying to convey it with just the ideas or words that you have going on in your head, it's way less effective than if you're writing about the senses, because that's how we remember these scenes. Like, if I remember the last time I saw my mother and I was very connected with my mother, you know, I remember she smelled like soap. I remember she was in a wheelchair. I remember her saying, "I'll love you forever. I'll love you until there is no ever." And and what did I taste? The tears running down my face. That's a memory, but it's nothing to do with what I was thinking in my head. It's everything to do with the senses. And so those effective scenes, those scenes where we're reading in a book and we're just like there, we're so present in that moment, it's because they're very sensory. Did anybody else want to add some of their own work there? Anybody else? Justin, or is it not Sarah?
I could give it a try.
Okay, yes, go, Rafael.
But that time I don't think it's really great. I still remember how I met my best friend.
There you go.
I didn't smell much really because I was just asking something that got my attention. There's some kind of things that got easier my attention than others. And I didn't know what to write else.
Yeah. Did you have more, Rafal, or is that what you wanted to say?
I didn't write more down.
I'd like you to keep on trying, and like tonight, just think a little bit, like, what do you remember from that time, from that moment? Because I'm sure, like, when I think about when I met my best friend, I was working in the Brooklyn Public Library as a research librarian, and she came in, and I was not supposed to be working there. I was like really not supposed to be working there. And she came in and she just stared at me and she said, "What are you doing here? You're not allowed to be here," you know, because I'm part of the Hasidic community. And so she's like, "What on earth are you doing here?" And I was like, "Well, what on earth are you doing here?" Right? And I have this very distinct memory of the sunlight falling through the windows onto this carpeting and like these dust motes kind of falling through the light as she's talking to me. And that's a very, very sensory image that's connected with my feelings about meeting her for the first time in that way. So typically our minds, our memories attach these really interesting sensory images to things that are important to us, people that are important to us. They're connected. Did anybody else want to add anything before we move to the next slide? Raduca.
I have this little comment that might help people. It's the difference about being in your head versus in your body. So if right now, you know, I mean, my husband is somebody that's in his head and for a long time would not know where his body is. And so we're literally saying experience the world with your senses is really being in your body. Like, what does your body feel like right now? And maybe that will give you an entrance into your memories from a sensorial perspective. Because being in your head a lot, in your thoughts versus in your body, maybe that would be that what helps me actually.
Yeah, right. You know, like a lot of psychology is all about experience yourself in the moment, right? Your bottom is in the chair, your feet are on the floor. What do you experience right here in the right here and now, right? So that's actually what that's talking about. And that's because when you are deeply in a moment, when you are deeply connecting, it's typically through the senses. And if you're completely disconnected, it's hard to make that connection. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next slide. Here we go. So why is this the moment that you chose to write about? So we've only got like a few more minutes, but why did this moment feel so intense to you, and why did you choose this moment? Can you remember what came immediately before it? What life circumstances may have led to this moment seeming both different and incredible? What do you make of it? What do you make of this moment? Right? That's a story right there. What happened before? What came? Why does this feel different? What do you make of it? That's actually a story right there. That's all the information you need to write a story. So, anybody? What happened right before Miss Raduca was in the field, near the tomatoes, or Penny was near the rose, you know, in the rose garden with her mum, or Sarah was, I don't know, because she didn't tell us. What was different about this moment that it stuck with you?
For me, the life circumstances literally reconnecting to a big loss. The loss of my country, the loss of people that I never got to see again by defecting. So, and due to that, I was very protected not to go sensorially, not to feel. And somehow my grandmother being a very safe image for me let me do that.
Yes, yes, that's exactly it, right? So this moment of profound connection is also linked with a moment of profound loss and disconnection. you experience the connection more because of the loss that's also there, right? So I didn't have, let's talk about my best friend story. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have friends in elementary school. I didn't have friends in high school. I didn't have friends in college. And I didn't have friends in seminary. That was my very first friend. So that was coming from a moment of tremendous loss and disconnection. And when she walked in and she stared me in the eyes and she's like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, somebody noticed me. So that's my moment of profound connection. It's also linked with this profound disconnection, right? Does anybody else want to talk a little bit about what you remember about what came right before your moment, or what life circumstances might have led to this moment being really different and incredible, or even what you make of it?
Before that, usually before that whole talking to my friends about it thing, my cousin knew about it. Well, she kind of made fun of me for it, but like not in like a mean way. But
Yeah.
my cousins were all just like surprised about it, maybe teased me a bit. But she was the first person that was like, "Yeah, me too," and I was like, "Yay, I'm not alone." Also, it was maybe my friend talking about her crush and just that felt nice.
Yeah, right, Brenda, that's right. Excellent. Did anybody else want to talk a bit about that? You don't have to. It's just if you want to, obviously.
I think Goldie and our friendship for so long, that's pretty profound, and deep connection through.
You cry.
Oh no, I don't mean to, but that's pretty profound, and I think it's pretty amazing story, really.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go too far into that right now.
Right. So again, I could say without saying any details that the story with Penny and I being friends is, this connection that we have is also based on very profound disconnection, right? Would you agree, Penny?
Absolutely.
Right. So these moments really make a story, and obviously a life as well, of profound connection, are also framed by moments when we understand the difference. This is what connection is, and we know because we also know what disconnection is. We know what that looks like, therefore we know what this looks like. And that's really important in a story. If you don't provide both aspects in a story, it's harder for your reader to say, "Oh yeah, that's good," or "That's not good," or "Wow, they're feeling really close," or "They're really it's hard to tell what's going on if you don't provide both. And so this is a work by Jennifer Witten, and I really just like it because I think that this connection and disconnection doesn't just happen externally, it also happens internally within ourselves, where sometimes we feel really connected to ourselves. And a story can also just be written about your internal world, right? So sometimes you feel really connected to yourself and you feel sort of centered and close to who you want to be as a human being, and sometimes not. Sometimes there's this profound disconnection. And so I thought that this was really interesting because this artist, this is a portrait, this artist is clearly demonstrating the internal, external kind of, are we connected internally to ourselves? Are we connected externally to others? I think it's interesting. So, and this is Rumi here talking about the same idea. And so Rumi is talking about finding joy in the midst of suffering. And I would have to say, I believe with COVID, with all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, we are definitely in the midst of suffering. Hello. And I would like to find some joy in the midst of suffering. And here's Rumi talking about that. And he says this, I said, and notice, by the way, he's talking about the senses. I said, what about my eyes? He said, keep them on the road. I said, what about my passion? He said, keep it burning. I said, what about my heart? He said, tell me what you hold inside it. I said, pain and sorrow. He said, stay with it. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Now, the wound is the place where the light enters you is literally what stories are founded on. That the place of profound disconnection, the wound, is also the place where we're capable of finding redemption, where we're capable of finding joy, where we're capable of moving beyond that place of wounding into a place of transformation, right? And so I really think that as we look at the places that we're very connected in our lives, the places that we're not so connected in our lives, that helps us to be able to create meaningful stories, not just stories about the three little pigs, but stories that really move other people when they read them also. Does everyone get what I'm saying there? Or am I just like, is it too airy-fairy? I hope it's not too airy-fairy. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with a little project, which you, whoopsie, why does it do this to me? No, come back. Nope, nope. Keep on going. There, that's what I want. Really? There we go. I'm going to leave you with a little project that I'd like you to work on, because creative writing is a cumulative process, and if you're practicing it, you'll get better at it. It's just like skateboarding and, or, you know, doing a flip into the swimming pool, or learning how to dance the tango, or anything else. It works like steps, you know, you just have to keep on climbing the steps. And the second you stop and you just like sit on the step for a while, you're not going to improve. So you have to keep on going in order to improve. And so I'd like you guys to keep on writing and to try out new things. And hopefully you'll come in and you'll show some of your work and you talk about it, and we'll all talk about it together. So I'd like you to do this though for your away from the class project. And again, you do not have to read this in class. This is for you. But I would like it if some of you did. So your character that you're going to be writing about is you, 1 year before your moment of profound connection. Write a 1 or 2 page scene with dialogue in which you tell someone, or someone tells you, that you won't get, or that you're incapable of discovering the kind of connection you really want. Make sure to invent please, a specific date, town, place, and characters' names. And now here's the important part. Make sure that your readers really believe all the reasons that it's impossible for this connection to take place. So when Cinderella is sitting there in the ashes, and she can't go to the ball, and she doesn't have a decent dress, and she's been banned from going, and she doesn't have the money for a pair of shoes or a coach, or she's far, far away from everything, right? Do we fully believe 100% that she is not going to get to that ball? Yes. There is no doubt in my mind when I read that, she's not going. And yet it turns around. That's what I want you to do in this part of your story. Now, this part of your story you can totally invent. It doesn't have to be true. It can be whatever you want. A year prior to this moment of very, very profound connection that you wrote about, right? Any questions on this?
No.
Okay. And again, I'm going to really, really, really encourage you. Take your pen, start writing, and don't stop until you have the 2 pages written. Just write the whole thing in one slew. Don't tell yourself you can't write that. Just keep on going. All right? Are we good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thumbs up?
Yeah.
All right.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Does anybody have any last questions, or are we done?
I have a question.
Yes, Sarah.
So it was when you showed when you first gave the assignment of thinking of the moment of greatest profound connection.
Yes.
And I wrote down 2 of those moments. And then I was hard to answer all the sensory questions, like the smell and the smell and the taste, because they were internal experiences, like in the sense that one of them was actually a dream that had a profound effect on my life that I can't remember tasting anything. And this is in connection, and it came, so I worked through those two examples, and they were very internal, not externally manifest. And then I got to the third example that happened in my real physical life, and it involved human beings and myself. And so I could write about that. But then when you brought up that picture of the embrace of the invisible person I was reminded again of those other two examples where they were profoundly meaningful, and I felt so connected within myself in ways that I normally don't. And so I want to know how to write about those things for which language seems hard, and maybe, well, it's really hard, and for which the cues of maybe sense and sight, well, no, sight works, at least in these examples.
Right. Sight should work and hearing should work, right? There's at least two senses there.
Yeah.
Should be able to use. Maybe you can't use the sense of smell because it doesn't occur in a dream, or sometimes it does, but like in your dreams it didn't. But definitely sight and sound occurred in your dream, right? And maybe even there was a tactile sensation. I don't know, because like I have very tactile dreams where I'm like, I feel everything. But like, you know, think about what actually happened in the dream and try and get those details down, because it will help you to be able to kind of expand it into the story that we're going to be writing.
So Goldie, also I think the presence of the lack of something is something to talk about too, right? I mean, even lacking the senses, that they can give us some sort of experience as well.
Right.
But at least that's.
Yeah. So I'm interested in Sarah's idea, because she's taught, you know, because stories are built around these moments of connection and disconnection, and as she pointed out very accurately, some stories are built around the external connection and disconnection, and some are very internal connection and disconnection, right? Some of the most beautiful and moving stories in the world are internal connection and disconnection. So yes, go ahead, Sarah. Really, I'd love to see, you know, I'd love to have you write something like that. It doesn't matter where that strong connection is coming from, whether it's an internal strong connection or an external one. I just want it to be a really strong one that means something to you guys. Okay? Okay. Awesome. Any questions? Anything else?
I have a question. Is it cool if I use characters I have created for other stories for this, so I can test out using them?
Is it cool if you can use what sounded like curated brother stories?
What? No, if I use characters I've already created before.
Yes, fine. It's totally fine. You can definitely do that. That's fine.
That I'm going to use for other stories for this story, so I can use them.
Yeah,
okay.
but just make sure that you get that moment in there where, you know, initially the profound connection moment, but you're starting from before that moment, right? Okay. Other questions? Anybody? Okay. If anybody wanted to send, if anybody wants to send their story to me before the week so that we can talk about it next week, my email, let's see if I can do this. Escape. Come on. Really? It doesn't want to escape. My email, I'm going to have Miss Raduca send out to you my email.
Can you write in the chat?
I'm not sure if I can.
Okay, can you say it out loud? I mean, Golda, yeah.
Yeah, so it's an annoying, super annoying email address, but it's Golda, Golda, Goldbloom, GOLDBLOOM at S like Sam, B like boy, C like cat, sbcglobal.net. If you wanted me to discuss your story next week in class, and I will do that, in fact, that's really helpful if you do that, send me your story before next week, okay? And then,
guys.
last but not least, Here we go. I think my screen is frozen. Well, I can't even show you the next. Nope, it's frozen. The last slide is just one of those negative, positive and negative images, and it's a big hug from one black bear to one white bear. So, hugs to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'm happy that everyone's attending, and I'll see you later next week.
Thank you so much, Goldie. Same
Okay,
time.
Thanks, bye.
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 Bye.